All right, let's take a step back and talk about full stack architecture um, from a macroscopic perspective. We basically have in our tech stack a client that will communicate with a web server, and it does this through API calls that are accessed in a browser, or it could be through curl commands from a terminal, or applications, third-party apps like Postman. The web server hosts the client connection and will interpret the client interactions. This is your front end, basically. And then it passes this information along to the app server, which handles the server-side requests, and it will point them to the appropriate API endpoint. And from there, the database will be CRUDed. It's going to be read, updated, deleted, whatever needs to be done based on the request. I don't have presentation view, so here is a sequence diagram of this web application flow. It's essentially the same thing, but we get to see a little more of what's happening in between the lines. So as we go through this flow, a request is sent to the web server, which then goes to the API, then the database, and it's sent back through another API, and that's returned as things like JSON data or HTML, CSS, JS updates. Okay, question. What is the key problem with the current state of the people getter application?
There's no web server.
Yes, there is no web server. So what else?
It only can run locally. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, non-deployability. That's exactly what I was getting at. But also it doesn't have a web server. So both things are essentially part of the same overall answer. And why is people getter currently non-deployable?
It only runs on your local host. So it doesn't have a public IP. No one else can access it.
Exactly. And that is what we are going to resolve today. So we're going to be using NginX, which is an open source and readily available, let's say, platform. It's got an official Docker image, so it's lightweight, it's easy to use. It's got all these things that are just ready to go from the get-go. It doesn't require a lot of setup. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be containerizing the front end, and the web server using NginX will be what handles client requests. In the people getter repository, Chad's already set up a lot for you, so there's a lot of I guess magic going on behind the scenes. And if you haven't taken the time to step through it, this is basically what it is. We have a shell script that will spin up the backend service containers by running these other shell scripts, like a DB setup script. It then dynamically grabs the container's IP address, and it writes it to a local variable. It runs a start script, which starts up the APIs, and then runs a front-end shell script. And let's look at these scripts one by one. In our start all.sh, we see a Docker command running Docker build to create the people database. It is passing in the PG_DB keyword as a name. It is saying --rm -exit to say remove this container and exit out once you're done doing your magic and running your code. It passes in a password and a database name. And my slide is very incomplete, apparently. Start all.sh. This next part is running an inspect command, which grabs the IP address that was stored locally, and it writes it to this variable db_IP_address. And then we start the start_API shell script, which is running a Docker run command after it's built out the people API. It's passing in these ports, 8,000, and from here, it starts the start front end script, which again is just another simple Docker build, Docker run. So once all of that magic happens, you're essentially going to have your project ready to go for you guys to work on in your groups. But let's also take a look at this, because if you do run into some NginX issues, I'm going to walk you through how to troubleshoot them. And it'll be nice to see just how NginX works behind the scenes. So where are we going to start off? I'm going to close this because that's a different, these are different examples. We want to be in our NginX directory. We're not in React yet, fortunately. Cool. And we are going to say cd into this. This is basically, yes, a very simple, I guess, web app. There's a JavaScript file, an HTML file, and a CSS file. All the basic ingredients you need to have a very basic web application run in your browser. So from here, we are going to open up the README so we could have our instructions. Actually, I don't know why I called Vim. We're going to open this up in VS Code because I'm in VS Code. And it's a markdown file, so let's preview that. Bring it off to the side. NginX is an open source software. And again, I'm going to add this repository to today's README. Let's start by running the following command. I've already got NginX installed, so I'm going to use brew services to see if NginX is one of my currently running services, and it is. So from here, I can skip through all of this and skip through this because it's running. What does it want me to do? Oh, it wants me to look at my NginX configurations. So I'm going to grab one of these paths and I'm going to look at one of these files. This is my core NginX configuration. And again, I should just open this in VS Code. Opt tab to autocomplete. It will save a lot of time. And here we have our NginX config. It's going to say a lot of stuff that might not make any sense at first, but here we could kind of start to maybe understand like what all these pieces are. We know that our web server needs to communicate with an HTTP. And so there are some parameters here related to that. And then we've got a server with a port number. Now this is starting to look a little more appropriate to our immediate use case. It's telling us we have a server name called localhost. So if I were to actually grab my browser again and type localhost with my port number, I can see that NginX is running and it's currently serving its default HTML page, landing page. What if I want a different web server? What if I don't want to use this one? This is where we could start to add some additional functionality. So that path that I had before, I'm going to now cd into this directory because from here, I can add additional servers. I may already have one from the last cohort. If I cd into servers from here, I see, yep, my server from last cohort. So I'm going to open this up. I'm pretty sure this directory does not exist anymore. So if I were to try that, no directory. So womp womp, we gotta start all over again. I am going to grab from the repository the, where is it again? Is it this one? I think it's this one. I'll grab my URL. I'm gonna run a git clone. And this is going to give me the files that you saw earlier. So the README, my front end, and my files. I'm going to type pwd to give me my folder directory. This is my present working directory. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to replace this. I'm replacing the configuration inside of my server's directory with this new file path. I definitely want to keep this the same. I'm specifying where the index is. It's index.html inside of my front end folder. That's got to be there. We can leave server name alone. It doesn't really matter right now. We are going to be listening on port 8081. So let's remember that. So I've saved. I am now going to brew. I'm always so bad at memorizing these commands. Brew. I'm trying to restart NginX. So I'm going to look at my README because I'm very forgetful. I'm going to run brew services, restart NginX. Okay, we see that it has stopped and started again. So now if I go into localhost 8081, I see my people getter page. I actually kind of ran this demo wrong, I think, because I think I was supposed to show a broken version at first. But let's see what's going on here. If we go into our app.js with the right command, we see that it is looking for, oh, I have this in another directory, I think. I have this running from another directory, I think. But then again, I changed the file path. This is where you would set the path that you want. In our case, we had said 8081, so let's do that. And it should be pointing to this instance now. But I do think I have the same, I guess, web app running from a different location. But that wouldn't make sense because I did update the path. Anyway, it magically loaded. It could have been cached. That might be it. I don't know. So I hope I didn't make this demo too confusing. It should be very simple and straightforward. I'll add the link, run through it yourself, and this will give you an idea of how NginX configuration works. Any questions? Cool. Let's see. I'll add this to today's README. And today's challenge is going to be Fullstack web app, part 2. With that, I am going to open up breakout rooms. You guys can take a 15-minute break and we'll be in the main room if you have questions.